All right, we might as well get right to it, boys, because people have apparently football to watch tonight. Like, the NFL preseason hype never ceases to amaze me. Everybody gets excited for it, and then after 2.5 games of it, they're just like, fuck the preseason. So people are excited. Football is back, but you know what is definitely back is lacrosse. I mean, we are in the swings of it. 3 games left in the regular season, playoffs right around the corner. Just found out our 3-team dais is all going to be likely meeting up together in Boston for the quarterfinals. So pretty pumped up about that. And I just let the cat out of the bag. You got the 3 horsemen of the bookpocalypse is what I was calling us earlier in our Slack team, because we have just been crushing it. Hopefully you've been riding along, and hopefully you've been doing good on your bets as well. I'm Dan Alexander. I'll be hosting our edition here of Bet On Lacrosse. And I got with me my guys, Charlie White, a Pickwise contributor, and of course, behind-the-scenes worker with us with what we do with Bet On Lacrosse. And we got the Pro Lacrosse Talk host and Action Network producer, Hutton Jackson, as well. So, Charlie, I'm going to start with you. How'd your week 8 go? How you been, brother? And also, where can people find your stuff? I think just Pickwise is, head on over to the site, and that's where your write-ups are, right?
Yeah, you can just go to pickswise.com. On the top of the banner, they have a lacrosse section. You go to there, you can find all my best bets articles, all the game previews I do. Or you can just follow me on Twitter. I post all my plays, all my analysis for there. I throw a little prize picks in every week too, live betting, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we went pretty well last week. We finished the month of July 13 of 18, 72% plus 11.87 units, which is pretty good. Hit my first live bet of the year because obviously in Rhode Island I don't have DraftKings, so I can't hit live bets. Thanks, Hutton, for that, for placing that Cannons plus 3.5 for me. And yeah, just go to my Twitter if you want to see all my plays, my full analysis. But yeah, been pretty good. So
yeah, it's not too bad when you're hitting what that would be 13-5. Not a bad month of July for our man C-Dubs there. And yeah, Hutton Jackson is on assignment as well. He is down in one of my favorite places, the Outer Banks. So I'm playing the role of bookie this week for my guy Hutton. And Hutton, my thumbs are tired, bro. We're spraying the board this week, man. How are you doing? And how did week 8 shake out for you?
I'm doing well, yeah, and I thank you, and I thank Brandon, who also helped me out the past couple weeks because I was in Wisconsin for 2 weeks. Now I'm in the Outer Banks. We'll be back in New Jersey, this weekend. So following these games, I'll be back. I should hopefully not need you guys much more, but appreciate that. But I'm also excited too because, again, like when you mentioned, I work for Action Network. We just rolled out a feature where you can sync your bets, not only with BetMGM was one that we already had, and now DraftKings as well. So not only am I not have to manually put it in plays after this week, they'll automatically populate as well. So looking forward to being able to do that. And if you guys haven't downloaded the Action app, I definitely recommend it. It helps you guys track your bets and really kind of be a responsible bettor as well. And all my plays go up on there. I try to put them all up pretty quickly. Now with BetSync, going forward after this week, they'll automatically populate. So it should be a little bit more timely when I put those up there. But yeah, excited to talk another PLL weekend.
Yeah, and as Hutton said there, responsible betting is the key. I preach it all the time. That good bankroll management allows us to have weeks where we just, load up the machine gun and spray the board. Because if you're practicing good bankroll management, that's going to allow you to maybe, spread yourself a little bit more thin, so to speak, on placing a couple more plays and things like that. If you stay disciplined to, a 1%, a 2%, a 3%, a 4%, whatever your highest percent is that you're comfortable betting with your bankroll, that's the way to do it. Because even those ones that you think are 5%ers, they could end up losing half of the time. Live betting has been great, guys. And I'll get into it on the show here a little bit. What we're going to do first, though, we're going to throw the mic over to Hutton in just a few so he can talk about Athletes Unlimited, because this is Bet On Lacrosse. Yes, we'll be talking a lot of PLL today, but we also have women's lacrosse that you're able to get down on across multiple different sports books on Caesars. Also, if you have some of those offshores like BetUS and things like that, those lines are offered there as well. So we hit all the lacrosse here. It's all a safe space here on Bet On Lacrosse. We're going to get into some team futures and a little bit of the MVP future market because, talk about steam. Trevor Baptiste is like a goddamn sauna with the steam that came in on him on the MVP futures market. We're going to get into those moves. Were they warranted? A little bit of that before we get into our PLL Week 9. But when we get into these games, you'll kind of hear I have some player props that I love, and huge shout out to DraftKings and BetMGM finally opening up the player prop market, because when it was just points, I was really staying away because I found that a lot harder to handicap at times than goal markets or assist markets, or what my new favorite market is, goalie saved. So I've definitely dipped way more into the player prop side of things, and it has been much more kind to me than those player props were at the beginning of the season. So I'm going to have some player props. I'll be giving out 3 that I really like on the show. We have some totals. We have some sides that Charlie's looking at. Hutton has a little bit of a mix of both. But as far as sides and totals, I've kind of stop betting them pre-flop unless it's a number that I really think isn't going to be there. I just kind of wait for the live line, because you kind of get to see how's the game going to go, and you can potentially be getting teams at 3.5 point underdogs. And we already know what good underdogs are at 1.5, especially at 2.5. You're able to get some 3.5 lines, and sure, they don't get home all the time, but that's a plus EV wager that I'd make every time and 2 times on Sunday. So we're going to get into the PLL in just a little bit here, but I'm going to throw it your way, Hutton, because I just want you to break down a little bit of this Athletes Unlimited, what you kind of been tracking, how much you've really been betting it, and, just as far as from a bettor's perspective, because from a fan perspective, I love the fact that it was on. Was able to throw it up on the TV. I was in a bar the other week, and I was able to ask them, hey, can you switch over? Having women's lacrosse in a bar is a great thing. Having any lacrosse is great, but just love how the game is being grown. And now that we're able to bet on it, it's a little topic on Bet On Lacrosse too. So Hutton, Athletes Unlimited, just give us kind of an overview on what you've been tracking.
Yeah, great to see on ESPN as well. They pretty much have a similar amount of games on ESPNU and ESPN2 as the PLL has been having. ESPN, obviously, and ESPN2 are more where the PLL has been living, as well as a few on ABC. And then Athletes Unlimited, though, they've had a lot of network games on ESPNU and ESPN2. Actually have one going on right now. But yeah, I think it's been great that we've been able to bet on them. Caesars has posted lines. They actually didn't post lines for this week 3. So I don't know if that was just, an error on their part. So hopefully they're returning, but it's been interesting because Athletes Unlimited, what many people may not know about it, one, it's women's lacrosse, so it's a little bit different, but it's also different rules. There are 2-pointers. So similar to the pro game and the men's side, where there's no 2-pointers in college, but there are in the pros. Same with women's lacrosse. They do have a 2-point arc. It's a little bit shorter. Charlotte North has been killing it. But unfortunately for Athletes Unlimited, it's mostly just been sides and totals that we've been getting. We don't get futures because the teams actually rotate each week. It would be nice to get some player futures because they actually have a leaderboard, and at the end, it's not like a team wins the championship. It's actually one player wins the entire league based on the amount of points. So it's almost like real life fantasy lacrosse, you could say. But that's kind of made it tough to handicap week to week because the teams are redrafted each week on Tuesday. So you're not really able to kind of get a good grasp on like team chemistry. You really have to watch the games a little bit more detailed and see who works well with each other, or rely on the fact that if players had played together prior in college or whatever. But I've kind of stayed away from sides. I thought there was some value. I hit on a bet early in week 1 when Sam Apuzzo drafted her team, and I thought it was pretty stacked, and they ended up being the underdogs. So I think that's where there's some value if you think a team has, value. But even then, most of the sides are juiced. It's almost a pick 'em. They're juiced on both sides, so it gets a little bit trickier there. But I'd say just if you're going to bet, look at the totals more than anything, because we got some. The totals are a little bit lower in this sport than they are in the PLL and NLL. And the totals are where you can kind of really find, some value, because we've been fluctuating from, I think they opened at 19.5 to start. Then they were as high as 21.5, 22.5. Some of them went under. Then they went back down to 17.5. I hit an over on the 17.5 game by the hook. So kind of finding, when they kind of overcorrect one way is where I think you can find the most value. But then playing the money lines, I wouldn't recommend playing, the plus 1.5, which is the standard that we've been getting, because a lot of these games haven't been decided by one goal. I think there's only been 3 games decided by one goal so far in the 3 weeks or in the 2 weeks. So they play 3 games though, and so that's where you can kind of if you watch on Thursday, you can get a good idea of these teams and bet them Saturday, Sunday. So it's a little bit tricky because you're kind of learning on the fly. It's not like with PLL. We know what the Atlas have done so far this season. We know what the Archers have done. You can't really predict it until you kind of see these teams in action. So those are kind of my tips for betting Athletes Unlimited if you do decide to do it. And it's a great league to watch and a lot of excitement. It's a faster game than the college game. So a lot of exciting goal-scoring plays, especially like I mentioned, Charlotte North is just lighting it up from the 2-point arc.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to see Charlotte North absolutely unload on Twine, it is definitely worth checking out for sure. So that's a little overview on Athletes Unlimited. Also want to remind folks who are listening, you ever want to be a part of the space, just hit that request button. That's why we love going live. We could just record this as a Zoom and hear ourselves talk. We'd like hearing your thoughts as well. So if you ever want to hop in, just hit that request to speak button. We'll get you in as soon as we can. Guys, I'm going to run down these PLL team futures. Most of these are available on Caesars unless I state otherwise. Hutton does a great job finding the longest odds. Going to throw these down, and then we're going to get into the MVP talk. If you guys want to throw in any futures talk as well, just as far as the teams, feel free to sprinkle it in once we go a little round table. But Whip Snakes, your odds on favorite at plus 375 is the best you can get if you have Barstool Sportsbook. Archers are plus 450. You can get that on Caesars, as most of these are available. Caesars likes tempting you with those longer odds. It's also available on BetMGM. Atlas plus 450 on Barstool, and then the rest of these are on Caesar. You got Water Dogs 550, Chrome 650, and then you got your long shots. Redwoods plus 1,500. You got Chaos is 15-1 as well, and Cannons basically no goddamn shot at plus 2,800. That's just been a rough season for them. And you look at the talent that they have, it's kind of surprising that Cannons can't just stay a little bit more competitive, or at least get home with some of these with the parity that we've seen. But that's your chance for any of these team futures. But Charlie, I want to throw it your way to talk about this because you had a great write-up on your Twitter, and you see Charlie in the space. Give him a follow on Twitter. He breaks down these games. He always at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the games before the weekend, he says, hey, these are my picks, but these are how I think it could shake out. He also gives out free picks all along the time. So give Charlie a follow here. But I wanted you to break this one down because Trevor Baptiste on Monday, the start of the day, was plus 400. And now the best number that you can get on Trevor Baptiste to win the MVP is plus 180. So, what the hell happened there, Charlie?
I honestly have no idea. I just saw the plus 400 number on Monday when I looked at it. And I figured 400, that's like a 20% implied probability. There's a way better chance than 20% that Baptiste wins this award. I think, honestly, it's probably his to lose. So my friend and I actually locked it in. I put on my Twitter, I put an irresponsible 5 units on it because I really don't see anyone else challenging. Lyle Thompson leads the league in points, but that team's the last in the league. So I think that I listened to Over and Back with you and Greg Renly and Dan, and he made a great point that says, there 2 or 3 of the other guys that are in the conversation are on the Atlas, like Chris Gray, Jeff Teat. And would they be doing what they'd be doing without Baptiste? I think that he's probably the most important player in the league. And the whole narrative that, specialists shouldn't win it, I think that faceoff is probably one of the more important positions in the PLL because with these teams stacked on both sides so well, it really comes down to which team can possess the ball more. And I think that because that Atlas have Baptiste, that's why they score so many goals. They have the ball more than the other team. That's just a very anecdotal way of saying it. But I think that Baptiste is the very clear favorite. I would probably take him anything at plus money right now. I really don't see a scenario in which he loses this unless he just absolutely starts blowing it the next couple weeks. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, and I completely agree. You know what I mean? I feel like I kind of missed the boat on getting value on Baptiste. We did have our guy Brad reaching out to us just to let us know if you have Bet365 for non-Americans or Americans who use some of those offshores. You have Bet365. Baptiste is still listed at plus 475 on that one, or excuse me, 450. Sorry about that. So 450 at Baptiste. So that price is still out there. I would love hammering that because I think you mentioned it, and you also plugged, my episode of Over and Back. You can find it in my Twitter bio right underneath. Just click that YouTube link or search Over and Back PLL in YouTube to see it. But Greg Beast, he really made the case, and also used his own kind of story of talking with Trevor Baptiste, and gave the real signal that Baptiste wants to win this award. Like, it's something that means something to him. So the motivation is there. And then the question is, who else is there? You know what I mean? Lyle Thompson, sure, he's lighting it up, but his team has one win. Will Manny, he was in the conversation, but he's fallen back. He's only had 4 goals or 2 goals in the last 4 weeks. So, it's kind of Baptiste and all the rest. And I think also when you're talking about MVP, it's such a narrative-driven award in all sports that, having a face-off guy potentially winning it and having it be historic because it's only the second ever win it in professional lacrosse. Also having it be a guy like Trevor Baptiste, who had some injuries, who, is one of those public players as well that people get excited about. He's a household name. I think there's a lot of buzz around Baptiste. I think it's warranted. I just don't know if it's warranted to see, 300 points of steam like that. That is unreal in an MVP market. And it kind of likens to what happened with Joel Embiid earlier this year, when Joel Embiid, there was all this talk, look at these numbers. It has to be his award to win. And he got steamed up. I think he was down to like plus 150 in the NBA MVP marketplace. And then the voting comes out. Jokic kind of steals the rug from under him. So I think Charlie makes a lot of great points there. I think Baptiste is in the driver's seat. Hutton, I don't know if you have anything more to kind of add on this Baptiste MVP race, and then we're going to get to some free plays here, our best bets for PLL Week 9.
Yeah, I agree with Charlie. I think it's his to lose right now. I do think there's a chance that with the stretch he is facing, he's going to face Withers this week. He's going to face Nardella. And I believe, I forget who else he's facing. He's facing one more tough opponent as well. So, there is a possibility that he could falter down the stretch, but he's looked so dominant, even after I think there was some cause for concern when we knew that he was injured. He misses that game. And, I didn't know how the whole narrative was going to go after that, because I figured like if they lose that game, it actually kind of helps his narrative. And sure enough, they lose that game by 1. They end up losing, and then they come back and they win, and he has a dominant performance the next week, and that kind of cemented him in there. But yeah, you look at Greg Renlian's season when he won MVP, the only other guy to do it was plus 70%. He was over 70%, and that's exactly where Trevor Baptiste is right now. So I think if he keeps it going, I think even if he dips to around like 68, 67%, he's still going to probably be the favorite to win it. Unless we see somebody really come out and propel their team forward. I think Will Manny has a chance to maybe do that. But right now I wouldn't bet anybody other than Baptiste. With the price, it's tough. Like, I want to say, I think right now with the price, if you have other futures out there, because I just bet him at this price and I kind of had to do it because I was a little bit overexposed on the other MVPs. If you haven't bet an MVP yet, I would maybe wait a little bit, see if you could maybe get a little bit more value. Maybe his line gets a little bit longer if he does have a little bit of an off day. But the thing is, he's going up into Denver where he played college. The narrative right there, I think, is big.
Just the only thing that worries me is this is an award that could change on a dime. And I get, I think great points made across the board that, yes, he is in the driver's seat. But, all it takes is like a huge couple weeks from Will Manny, and then he's back in the conversation, because they don't want it to be a runaway award. You know what I mean? Like, they want there to be conversation around it. So, that's the only part that worries me in a very subjective market. Only getting plus 150. I would rather, because Greg Renlian made the point that part of the key for Trevor Baptiste at this point is making it deep in the playoffs, right? So you almost figure, just play the Atlas and do like that kind of mechanical parlay where, you bet on them every week. And yes, you're probably going to have to lay juice because they're probably going to be favorites every week, but just take them money line once the playoffs roll around, take them in the quarterfinals, take them in the semifinals, because then, you probably will end up with around the take back that you would if you're only able to get a plus 150. Like, if you're able to get, plus 200 or above even, okay, you can talk me into that a little bit more. But I just think that's a tough price. I want to get our guys' thought on this. Brad joined in. He was the one who let us know on Bet365. You can still get Baptiste plus 450. So, Brad, you want to chime in on this MVP future, or you have some other stuff on your mind, brother?
I absolutely want to get on this MVP talk. I find this kind of fascinating. I was talking with Charlie a little bit earlier this week when he was running down his thread of his bet, and I did end up taking some of that plus 450 that I mentioned to you guys, but I'm kicking myself because I kind of looked at the 8,000 at the start of the year and passed it up. I just think that with this line movement, I know you guys are saying, bet any plus money you can find on him right now. I kind of think that's crazy. He's 3% ahead of Joe Nardella right now in face-off percentage. One bad game, especially if that bad game is head-to-head with Nardella, whose team is performing much better. I think the specialists on the Atlas and the specialists on the Whips this year are kind of even when you look at the face-off and the goalies. So I just struggle to see how he has more than a 50% chance when, Jeff Teat's still out there at plus 850, I think. Lyle's got plus 550. And, we saw last year with Blaze winning it on a bad regular season team. The league's not really focused on that team success so much. So there's still a lot of season left, a lot of narrative left. So kind of struggle to get to that plus 180 number.
And that's the way that I kind of look at it too, is like, I always, when I'm betting a future, like I need some nice plus money take back. And I can't believe that you could have gotten an 80-1 on this ticket. I mean, good God, like that just makes my heart hurt, that I'm like, yeah, I could get some value at plus 400 if you could have seen this season coming from Baptiste. I guess hindsight always 2020, but I'm not really a futures bettor for exactly what Brad is saying right there. Hutton, I don't know if you have any kind of thing to add on the thought of, maybe the implied probability or, how Trevor Baptiste could potentially find himself no longer in the driver's seat. So I'll let Hutton answer, and then Charlie, you can kind of give the final thoughts on that one. But good questions raised by Brad, I think, and fair ones.
Yeah, well, maybe I should have maybe been a little bit more prepared. I didn't realize he was already down to plus 180. I was still thinking he was more around the plus 275 range. Plus 180, yeah, I think even if he has a big game in Denver, I don't think it's going to get that much shorter. So honestly, I think I would wait to see if there is a bounce back. Maybe wait, see what he does against Nardella, like you said. The other thing too is whether you play it now or not, to realize is, so the coaches and players are going to vote on who's the finalists for this MVP award at the end of the regular season. And then they'll reveal the finalists, and then you'll be able to, continue to bet on them. And then they announce the actual winner the day before the championship game. So that what's interesting there is players and coaches are going to name the finalists. So just knowing that in our mind, like it's going to be based on like the peers and who they think, but then it's also the media, and then the committee, as well as some people in the front office of the PLL that actually give the award. So it's almost like you're kind of taking two steps here. And so while I do think Baptiste, I do think he's the favorite for a reason, just because I think you take him away and the Atlas do struggle a little bit more. You do got Jeff Teat, you do got Jack and Cannon. Whereas I think the Whipsnakes have been really benefiting from Kyle Bernlohr's play and that defense's play. No discredit to Nardella, who's also been a monster at the stripe, but that's where I kind of think the narrative is there for more Baptiste than it is for anybody else. But I do think Brad has a point where, if you do have any sliver of doubt, maybe you think Manny does have a chance to make a run at it. Maybe even think, a guy like Jeff Teat starts to emerge more, and you're like, is Baptiste still the MVP on his own team? You could wait and just see who those finalists are, and you're not going to get as great as odds, but at least you kind of know what's going to happen. And I kind of feel like that's a similar situation too, with team futures. We don't have to really get into that, but like people looking at that Cannons number plus 2,800, that looks really nice right now, but they almost have a slim to no chance if they lose this week. If they win, their odds of getting in are at 66%. So you might as well actually just bet them on the money line this week, as opposed to betting their future right now at this point, but we can get into that conversation a little bit later, but I don't know if Charlie has anything to add to that, or any counter to what you were saying.
Yeah. So my thing is, I so from the last time we had an MVP talk, Hutton, you kind of laid out that they vote on it at the end of the regular season. So I looked at this last three games of the Atlas' season. They have the Water Dogs, which is Jake Withers. Then they have the Whip Snakes, which is Joe Nardella. And then after that, they have Max Adler, who looked pretty good last week. But if I had to take a wild guess, Baptiste is probably very likely to finish 60% or more in the Water Dogs and the Chaos game. So if you're telling me I had plus 400 odds that Baptiste would have a 55+% winning percentage against Joe Nardella, and just basically, I think if he does well against Nardella and they beat the Whip Snakes, I think he's a shoo-in for the award. So I think that if you're giving me plus 400 odds on basically that alone, I'm going to take that 10 times out of 10. There's obviously still a chance that he could implode against the Whip Snakes. The Whip Snakes could blow out the Atlas. He could go 40%, whatever. A lot of other players could come in and score 1 million goals the next 3 weeks. I just think that the way I see it, getting the 400 number when I did based on the remaining schedule is kind of, I think, really good value regardless whether it wins or not, which is why I love the bet so much. So that's kind of what I have to wrap it up with.
No, I think you nailed it there. Like, if it makes sense for your bankroll to have your money tied up for 6 weeks to get a 4-to-1 back, I love that kind of value. And Brad also mentioned, not on the space there, but he tweeted at us that if you do have Bet365, which people are able to get on that, it's an unregulated, offshore that you can get down on, but you can still get a plus 450, which is 50 cents even more than a spot that we all kind of feel is valuable for a player who, sure, maybe the implied probability isn't there, but just the eye test, the narrative test, and our ears kind of being to the ground and talking with people who are connected, it seems like there's a little bit more likelihood than not that Trevor Baptiste is going to be your MVP when all is said and done. But who knows, guys? Like we said, even your best players are going to lose half the time. So, a crazy week from a couple different players. Will Manny gets back into it, and it's a 2-horse race. You have Kyle Burnlore's save percentage go through the roof, and they're continuing to win. They only have 1 loss. Now you got a 3-horse race, and it's anybody's game. You don't know how the voters are going to go. So I think valid points all around. Fascinating conversation there. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you did, hit us all with a follow. You can always reach out to us at Bet On Lacrosse and at Pro Lacrosse Bets. Boys, let's get into some even more actionable info. Everybody's favorite coming up here. We're going to get into week 9 of the PLL. Can't believe that there's only 3 weeks left in the regular season. We're going to kick it off with this Redwoods and Cannons game. Total is 24.5. Redwoods 1.5-point favorites. But before that, a little radio tease. Let's talk with another one of our Pro Lacrosse Talk contributors. We got Matt chiming in here. Matt, what's on your mind, brother?
What's up, Dan? I just want to say one more thing about the MVP before you guys got away from it. I think Baptiste at plus 400, I think that's a great value. I don't know if, right now I don't really love the number. And then, I'm a Fogo. I love looking at the matchups. But Withers, his style, I just don't think it's going to fit well and be a good matchup for Baptiste right now, especially with his hamstring injury. You see Grant Ament, he was out for weeks with his hamstring. Baptiste is still going to be, a little bit injured. He's going to be a little hurt. And the way Withers faces off, Baptiste, he's not going to get like the scoring opportunities that he normally gets because Withers is stand up. He's not going to let Baptiste get those fast break opportunities. Nardella, he's only 3% less than Baptiste. He's not really talked about. So I think that'll be a tough matchup too. And Adler, he's been out a couple weeks. Baptiste has played the whole season. He's injured. Adler's a little more fresh. So that makes me nervous. And then I think if the Cannons make the playoffs, I think that Lyle might have a good chance of making it because without Lyle, that Cannons team might literally be winless. Like they just, they've been struggling all year. And, there's a reason all the Cannons games are on national television and they try to push Lyle onto like the national audience because, he's one of the greatest players ever. So I think that they kind of want to push that narrative too. So I think Lyle Thompson is not a bad bet right now in my eyes.
Yeah, and that is the big if, heard around the world. If they're able to get in, yeah, he's live. But if they're not, you have to shred that ticket. So you kind of have to weigh how likely is it. And I think Hutton was kind of laying out. Maybe there's some different ways to attack him. But good stuff there from our man Matt. A Fogo himself. We'll see how those matchups do shake out. If Trevor Baptiste can, fight through those 3, whew, I think it's going to be tough for somebody else to put a stamp on their name in this race. Guys, Redwoods Cannons 1.5-point favorites, total 24.5. I'm going to let Charlie kick this one off because he has the more traditional play. Hutton, you can bat second, and I'll close it down with the best bet I have in this one and a little micro market action. But I think you're looking at this this total, if I'm not mistaken, right, Charlie? How are you leaning?
Yeah, this pick for me is gross because last week I remember saying in the Slack that I'm never taking a Cannons under ever again just because their defense is so bad. But then I looked at it and I'm like, the Woods have 2 straight overs, the Cannons have 3 straight overs. At some point, they both got hit and under. I think it's a perfect recipe for an under, and especially at 24.5. I think that the Cannons need to win very badly if they want any hope at making the playoffs. The Redwoods also need to win because if they lose, they'll have the same record as the Cannons with a head-to-head loss. So that would vault them into last place. So both teams are really going to win. It should be a playoff-like atmosphere. And I think that the Cannons defense and the Redwoods defense, honestly, have both been pretty porous the past 2 or 3 weeks. That's going to stop at some point. They both have a lot of talented players. I think that they're going to reel it in, kind of play a tight game. Denver Air going to be a little harder to go up and down the field like the Cannons like to do. I think we're going to get some bad weather too. So I think all the ingredients kind of fall into place here for an under. But yeah, it is gross just because both defenses are very tough to go for.
Hey, I love the gross plays. If it makes your stomach hurt when you bet it, I'm all on board. And I just categorically this weekend, I never like blindly bet stuff, but just because, I didn't know which way the numbers were going to move, I didn't know if I was going to get any better juice. I took all 4 games and bet them under specifically because of one note that really touched on there, and that's that Denver Air. These are teams that have traveled every single week, and now we're in week 9. Playoffs are right around the corner. Some of these teams, they already know that they're in. This is not one of those games, but traveling from Texas to go play in altitude at Denver, there's a reason why the Nuggets always have a good home record. There's a reason why the Utah Jazz always have a home record that's solid, and that is because you're playing teams on altitude. Typically, they are always getting a little bit of an edge in a back-to-back situation when players are a little bit more fatigued. I get it that the guys get 5 days off in between every game, but in week 9 of a season, having to go and play at altitude, and this is an angle we might be able to roll over to next week because next week is in Utah. So, maybe they get a little bit used to the altitude. I'm not sure, but I do think there is something to 9 weeks of tough lacrosse. And yes, there was a bye sprinkled in there, but now you're going and playing at altitude in a weekend that might have some shitty weather with some teams that may have already punched their ticket to the playoffs. Again, that's not in this game. These guys should be balling. I really like that under. I'm co-signing that one with Charlie. It's one that I bet myself. Hutton, I think you have a little bit of a vibe on the side, and it kind of ties in to maybe just a betting philosophy that you're taking into this week. And then you have some player props as well, one that I think is a double best bet for us. Hopefully we can finally get one of those home Hutton double best bets. But I'll give the mic over to you and give your thoughts on this Cannons Redwoods game, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I really like the Cannons in this spot just because every game from this point out is essentially a playoff game for them. They're motivated. And I haven't seen enough from the Redwoods still. I know they beat the Atlas 2 weeks ago, and that was a huge win for them. But I just feel like they play down to every team's level, and we kind of saw that with the Chaos. And, now the Chaos have all their horses back, and they're looking like the Chaos of old. But I haven't been impressed with them overall. I think this is going to be a close game. But I think now at plus 130, it was plus 120 on BetMGM. It's currently plus 130, I believe, on BetMGM now for the Cannons money line. I think there's some value there to take them in a spot that is a must-win for them. They've played all these teams close so far. They've lost some heartbreakers, other than the Archers, who've kind of had their number. They played them pretty well actually in that first half. I think they're going to be good. The problem with most of these games is they've run out of steam, other than this last game where they actually picked up some steam at the end and came pretty close to tying that up. I just think this is a good spot for them, and I'm expecting a big game out of Lyle, and I think it's going to be I don't really have a read on the total in this one. But yeah, I like Cannons money line. That's my favorite bet in this one. And then I have some props too, just purely based on the number. Perkovic getting half a goal. Oh, so I like the over and half a goal, even though it's a little bit juiced at minus 135. I think he's going to break through. I do think too it's a good matchup with these short stick defensive middies. You got you got Goodrich, who's one of the top guys in the league, but the Cans have kind of struggled at that position. They did just add Pat Islanian, so that's going to be an upgrade. But still, like, this is going to be his first PLL action, I think, so far this season. So that's, a little bit of a tough spot for him. So I think Perk kind of finds the back of the net at least once. And I like Cav also to find the back of the net. His is also at 0.5 goals. So I like that over, and I think you're kind of on the same wavelength as me, Dan, with that one.
And for what it's worth, Perk has scored a goal in 2 straight games and 3 out of his last 4 games. Last time when they played last year, when he was facing off against the Cannons, he found the back of the net against the Cannons. It's their first matchup this year, but there has been some recency bias, so to speak, on Perk finding the back of that line. So you're just asking for a goal from him. That's a great number to go over. And I'm right there with you. We're going to give it the kiss of death, Hutton, and make it a double best bet. Those have never really worked for us, but this one's just too good to pass up. Over a half goal for Matt Cavanaugh. We only need him to find the back of the net one time. He's failed to score in just 2 games this year. So he scored in 5 out of 7 games that he stepped on the field. And is the opportunities there is the real question. He's had at least 3 shots in every game that he's played. So he always at least finds a way to find his hands free. Sometimes it doesn't hit the back of the net, but give me that over the half goal, Matt Cavanaugh, double best bet. And yeah, man, talk about, bets that make you sick. We have an under from Charlie. We have a money line from a team with 1 win from Hutton, and we're going over half goals. So that's game special. Let's get to the second game of the weekend. Saturday, we got Chaos Chrome. Chrome are the 1.5 point favorites despite being on a 3-game skid. Total in this one, 23.5. This one's a sheer pass for Charlie, but we got some crossfire on me and Hutton. So Hutton, you can finish off by giving your player props. We'll do that, but give me your side here, because this is one that you tweeted out. And I was scratching my head a little bit. You want to lay it with the Chrome?
Yeah, I hate laying -1.5 with teams. Just it's not very good EV play most of the time in this league, just given the fact that these games are so tight. But I really like this Chrome team. They've had a tough stretch. They played the Atlas. They played the Whip Snakes. They've played some tough teams so far, and I think they're ready to get a win again. And they lost to the Water Dogs too, which was another tight one. So I think they're going to get in the win column against the Chaos team. That this defense just isn't that good. Other than Blaze, it hasn't performed. They're missing Johnny Surdick this year. It just hasn't been up to snuff. Even the last game, I mean, they only gave up 12 goals, but I still just am not bought on them. And I think this Chrome offense can really click against a team that does not like to slide. So I think you're going to see Nick Turn maybe put a few goals home, but I also like him more as a feeder in this game. I think Malloy is going to find the back of the net. I think Wisnauskas is going to find the back of the net. So I'm kind of spraying the board in terms of their player props as well. I like Chrome -1.5, especially at -105. I think that's where the real value lies, because I think they can easily win this game against the Chaos, but you're also not having to lay that much juice either. So I like Chrome -1.5, and I like over on 2.5 assists for Nick Turn. He's been doing really well, as a feeder throughout the season. You can make the case he's the rookie of the year so far. I like over 1.5 goals for Malloy, and I like over 3.5 points for Wisnauskas, because I do see Wisnauskas being able to either find the back of the net or, feed to Malloy as well in this game. So those are the 3 for the attack. And Justin Anderson as well, as I like his over 1.5 points. So kind of going all over the place with this Chrome offense, but I just think the matchup is too good. I think, Blaze will make some stops, but this defense, they live and die by playing you straight up one-on-one matchups, and Chrome has the guys to beat and win those one-on-one matchups. So I think they have some trouble against this Chrome offense, and I think the Chrome easily win this game.
And the thing about having trouble with the offense, though, if there's one thing that can, put a little lipstick on that pig, it is Blaze Reardon, a guy that we love cashing overs on his saves. Now, we have a little bit of crossfire, so ding, 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 hit the bell. I think Hutton has a little bit stronger of a vibe towards his Chrome look than I do. On this Chaos side, I think for me, it's just kind of a value thing, because Chaos, you can get the 1.5. They haven't been great getting the 1.5. Actually, they're only 1-3 against the spread as 1.5 point dogs this season. So they're kind of bucking that trend that's been pretty profitable. However, I might even sprinkle on the money line a little bit at 130, because part of my worry about backing Chrome in this game is the whole, they're due, they looked so great to start the season, come out of the gate, they start 4-0 and they've lost 3 straight since. So I just worry about the potential creeping in of this Chrome team being like, shit, like, are we actually what people said we were going to be preseason? Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but I just think in this game, we've seen an upwards trajectory for Chaos, and we've seen a similar downwards trajectory over the past 3 weeks from Chrome as well. So if you're giving me a goal and a half with a team that I think is a live dog to win the game, I'm going to do that. Again, it would be like a half unit, maybe a 1 unit play for me. It sounds like, Hutton feels a little bit stronger on the side. I like those player props that you're looking at. And last thing I have on this game is one of my best bets for the week. I'm going over the 10.5 saves for Scanoni. And I know it's square, but sometimes the square plays get home just as much as the sharp ones do. It's minus 125 on BetMGM. And he's gone over this number 4 out of his 7 games. So again, 3 of the times he didn't. That's only 1 over that 500 mark. However, he has not this season gone back-to-back games without getting 11 or more saves. So he had 7 last week, and I'm not saying, oh, this is an amazing trend, pull off the rubber band or anything. I just think he'll be seeing some shots in this game. And then you're going to look to the overall standings and tell me Chaos, well, they only have 143 shots on goal for the year. That's worse than the PLL. However, only 54 of those shots were before they got burned back, before they got Dane Smith back. And again, it's 4 versus 3 games, but they've been putting more shots on cage. I think Scanoni will see some shots in this game. And I think if he does, he's going to have enough to be able to creep over that 10.5. Best bet for me, Scanoni over 10.5 saves on BetMGM minus 125. Let's get into this Atlas Water Dogs game, guys. Atlas 1.5 point favorites against the Water Dogs, who are underdogs again. Total 24.5. Since I've been going last, I'll go first because I don't love this play. I just felt like based on all the Baptiste love, I had to bet this. It's Baptiste to score a goal over a half goal. It's plus 150 now, was plus 170. You might be able to shop around and find a little bit better of a price, but on MGM, you can get 1.5 take back to your $10 bet or whatever your 1 unit is. I know he only has three goals on 7 shots, but this is a fun-ass bet. I'm looking forward to this Atlas game, so I'm going to just do the corny ass. Let me have fun. Let's have Baptiste smoke a face-off, go down, face dodge a motherfucker, and hit the back of the net. Make even a bigger case for MVP. Let's go, Baptiste, over a half goal. It's not even a little sharp, but it's my bet that I'm going to be placing. Not a best bet for me, just a fun one. Charlie, how are you attacking this game? Because I think you like, or actually, hold up, Hutton. I'll give your thoughts on this Baptiste thing because I just got jacked up even just saying it. I might just go bet more because I'm so excited for it. So talk me down a little bit or hype me up more, Hutton, and then we'll get Charlie's thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a fun play, and you have the Atlas going up against the team that's giving up the most transition goals as well. So that's kind of, a nice little nugget to kind of go with that. Right now, Water Dogs and Chrome are both giving up 42% goals on 42% of fast breaks. So, and the Water Dogs are giving up a plus 50 shooting percentage. So if there's a game to do it and bet Baptiste over, I know we did have Matt on today, Withers might muck it up a little bit with him, but if Baptiste wins one of these cleanly, this Water Dogs defense hasn't been great in transition. So you might see him find the back of the net.
All right, it's upgraded, a max goat, 10-unit play. No, I'm just fucking with you. Baptiste, I like it just a little bit more, but still, it's like a pizza money bet for me. I think it's just a fun one with a decent take back at plus 150. We'll get Hutton's thoughts on some player props, and maybe he can bolster the thoughts on the side, but I think Charlie's looking at the side and the total in this one, and he's been nailing those all year long. Charlie, what do you got in this Water Dogs Atlas game?
Yeah, so for picks wise, I get 1 game a week where I do a deep dive in and I give analysis on the side and the total. Water Dogs Atlas was the game this week, so I think I have a pretty decent read on it. So I did some research. So first you got to start with the total. I think this game is going to go under because both these teams, when they play other teams that are above 500 currently in the standings, they tend to have lower scoring games. So against teams that are plus 500. The Water Dogs and the Atlas are both 3-1 to the under. Both of these teams, 24.5 total, are 2-1 to the under of 24.5. And I just think that it's going to be a playoff-like atmosphere. The Atlas, they're vying for the 1 seed. The Water Dogs are on a hot streak, but they can't afford to lose many games or they might, rocket down the standings pretty quick. It's a pretty tight league, so this should be a very playoff-like atmosphere for this game. So I think in those type of games, anecdotally, it tends to go under a little bit. Then you also have the depth. You also have the possible bad weather. So I think that all those things combine for an under. Now, once that we have that locked down, the under, the Water Dogs, they haven't put up more than 11 goals when they've won less than 40% of their faceoffs. Withers is sitting at 43% for the year. Baptiste has not let the team win more than 40% of the faceoffs in any game he's played this year. So I think that right from the get-go, you're looking at a low-scoring game for the Water Dogs. However, when each team's games go under, the Water Dogs are 4-1 against the spread at plus 1.5 this year. They're 3-0 against the spread when the total goes under, and they're at plus 1.5. On the other hand, Atlas are 0-2 against the spread as a favorite when the total goes under. So if you think this game is going under, which I think there's a very good chance it does, it's going to be very hard to trust the Atlas winning by 2 or more goals. So I think that the Atlas are probably going to win this game, but I'll take the plus 1.5 with the Water Dogs just for the insurance there. So that's my kind of view on the game.
God damn, that's a handicap 101 right there. Side and total in shorter amount of time than it takes me just to get hyped up over a Baptiste bet. Well done by our man, Charlie White Hutton. Last word on this game. Then we're going to wrap it all up with, I feel like all of these games could potentially be game of the week. We're going to finish off with the Whip Snakes Archers. If you want to hop in, just hit that request button. We'll get your thoughts on the slate before we get you out of here. But Hutton, last word on Atlas Water Dogs. What do you got, brother?
I tend to lean, what Charlie was saying as well. Like, I love betting the Water Dogs as underdogs. It's been a lot of fun and very profitable so far this season. But I just can't do it against this Atlas team. So purely a lean for me, the 1.5. Just can't bring myself to actually bet it. Kind of leaning under as well. But again, not going to bet it because I could see this going one of two ways. It could be really high scoring. We could see a lot of back and forth. It could also be very low scoring. So not going to play a side or total in this one. I do like a few player props. I think getting teed at over 1.5 assists is very advantageous. They're going to do their best to try to not let him score. So I think we're going to see him being more of a feeder and, make the extra pass. So I like his over 1.5 assist prop. I really like Michael Sowers under 2.5 goals. He's had 3 goals, I think, in the last 3 games. So it's kind of, you're kind of going against the trend so far, but I think he's going to be much more limited. We saw him run midfielder this past weekend to some success, and that's actually, doesn't mean him not playing attack actually doesn't mean less opportunities. In a way, he gets to sometimes have short stick matchups, but I think he's just going to be more limited in how much time he sees because he does have some medical history that he's dealing with, and I just think asking him to get another hat trick for the 4th week in a row is kind of a lot to ask. So I'm fading him, especially against this tough Atlas defense that has some good short stick defensive middies, presses out on offense or presses out on defense, going to give them some trouble. So I like that prop. And then finally, Concannon over 12.5 saves. I would love it more if it was 11.5 saves, but the Water Dogs do take the most amount of shots in the league. And they also, as I pointed out last week when we cashed on a Nick Morocco over, a lot of I think they're either last or close to the bottom in possession-ending events, ending in a save, whether it's messy or clean. So those are some advanced stats that the PLL stats team has put out, and that kind of helps me, handicap this one. I just think that Concannon's going to see a lot of shots, and he's one of the best at stopping it on the doorstep. So I think he's going to have a big game this week.
Oh, my nice little. I mean, Hutton wasn't lying at the top of the show when he said he's spraying the board with player props. I mean, what? It was like 3 in that one, 4 in the last game, and I can confirm as being the one who's placed Hutton's bets for him this week. The dude is buzzing. Just to add to something Charlie said as well, this season the Water Dogs are 4-1 against the spread as 1.5-point dogs. You go back to last year, they are 9-4 as 1.5-point dogs, and that's relatively the same roster that they had last year. So this is a team that when they're underdogs, they're barking for sure. He's looking towards those dogs. He's looking towards that under. I'm going with the Baptiste over the half goal, and Hutton has a whole laundry list of props that he's hitting in this one. Boys, it's time. The last game of the weekend, which on paper looks like it could be the best. Archers taking on the Whip Snakes. Whip Snakes 1.5-point favorites in this one. Total 23.5. Hutton, how are you betting this game? I know that you're into some player props. Do you have anything on the side or the total in this one, or is it just all player props for you? We'll get Charlie's thought, and then I'll wrap things up here.
This is another tough one for me. The Archers are super hard to handicap just because they're such a talented team, but the face-off disadvantage they have week in and week out just makes it hard to, see if they're going to get enough possessions to overcome, their deficit at the face-off stripe. And this is another game, a tough matchup. It's going to be similar to the Atlas last week where they're facing Joe Nardella. So Whip Snakes are probably going to have a possession advantage. Whip Snakes' new offense that they're kind of rolling out with Keegan Khan at X, and having Zed and Rambo up on the wings is starting to work, really well. You're seeing Gutterton get involved with a two-man game with Rambo and stuff. So overall, it's tough for me to pick a side in this one. I'm kind of going to sit back and see if maybe I can get value on the live line. If maybe we can get some really good plus money on a live money line and see if they come back, get some positive plays there. I lean over just because I do think the Whip Snakes are starting to find a groove on offense. Archers, obviously, we know they can score. So that would be my lean, but I'm not betting it. But in terms of player props, I think, now that we have goal props is very advantageous because the points make it tricky because they kind of have to, aggregate both points and assists. Zed Williams and Will Manny are goal scorers. We've seen Will Manny be a feeder in a few games this season, but predominantly those two guys are goal scorers, and right now their goals prop is 1.5. I like betting both of those. I think Zed's going to break through eventually, and I think he's going to get 2 goals this weekend, and I think Will Manny's going to have a big game as well, and I know you're kind of feeling the same way, Dan.
Yeah, it could be another kiss of death, double best bet. I mean, we got 2 of them this week, Hutton. We can't go 0 for 2. Shit. I mean, I'll get to my best bet here in just a second. Is it Zed or is it Manny? I'll let you know the double best bet that Hutton and I have for you. But Charlie's got a vibe on the side. Are the dogs barking again here, Charlie?
I mean, the Whip Snakes just don't cover spreads as a favorite. It's just you brought up the whole Water Dogs plus 1.5. They're 9-4 since last season. I think one of the most profitable other blind bets you can take is just taking any team plus 1.5 against the Whip Snakes. They might not win, but they're going to cover the 1.5. So I think there's a very good chance that we see some negative regression here. I mean, the Whip Snakes, I know their shtick is to win 1-goal games, but at some point they got to lose one, right? And I think that the Archers, after in a bounce back spot after a tough loss to the Atlas, I think this is the perfect time to take them. I know plus 1.5 is juice for the Archers, but I feel confident that they're going to win this game outright. But even if they don't, I do not think the Whip Snakes will win by more than 1 because they just haven't done it. They won 1 game by 2 goals to the Chaos. And I didn't watch that game, but I think there was some fluke thing that happened that they didn't end up winning by only 1. But either way, Whip Snakes might win this game, sure, but they're not going to win by more than 1. So I think that plus 1.5 with the Archers is a pretty safe play because you get that 1.5 and you also get them if they win. So that's where I'm leaning for this game.
Second time this season that we've seen Archers as 1.5-point underdogs. They covered the first game, and going back to last year, this is only going to be the 3rd time total. That means 1 time this year, 1 time last year. The Archers have covered as underdogs every single time. They're 2-0. It's a small sample size, but it's a good one against a team that, like Charlie astutely said, they don't really cover that 1.5. They might win, but they don't really cover that 1.5. Last year's matchups between these teams, you just flipped who the team was that won. 15-14 and 15-14. Both of the matchups last year, Archers won 1, Whip Snakes won the one that was in the playoffs. So these are teams that play close. That 1.5, a look that I like. I'm hoping that the Whip Snakes go up early so I can get a little bit more juice on the Archers, potentially on a live line, but I co-sign that one again. A lot of consensus agreement. We had 1 crossfire on the Chaos Chrome game, but we're all kind of in lockstep, which worries me a little bit, but I think we got a finger on the pulse here. So, Hutton, we're doing it. We're making a double best bet. It's going to be on Will Manny over 1.5 goals. That's my second best bet that I have here for you on the show. It's only minus 115 on BetMGM. I love the number, and I love the situation, too. After starting the year with 13 goals in 3 weeks, oh, my God, Will Manny's the man. He's just scored 2 goals in 4 games. And let's be fair, hasn't been by lack of trying. One game he had 11 shots. In these 4 games, he's taken 22 shots. So he's still trying to pepper the cage. He's just not finding the back. I think there could be some positive regression in the case of Will Manny. And if he wants any chance at creeping back into this MVP conversation, he needs a big game against the Whips. And now, well, you don't bet against the Whips. Kyle Bernlohr's crushing it. Well, last year, and that's all we can draw on because this is their first meeting this year, 2 games against the Whips, Will Manny scored 6 goals total. He had 2 in their playoff matchup, and that was against Fipsy in their regular season meeting, which was kind of what contributed to Bernlohr finding himself on the pine. 4 goals. Will Manny dunking on Bernlohr. Let's have him do it again. 2 goals is all we need out of you, Will Manny. Get back in that MVP conversation with 2 goals. Will Manny over 1.5 goals. My best bet in this Whip Snakes Archers game. So thank you for tuning in and listening into the entire show because, dear God, if you didn't get some actionable info out of this one, Jesus, you weren't listening because we were firing on all cylinders. You can go back. You can re-listen. That's our thoughts on the slate. If you want to give us yours, reach out to us at Bet On Lacrosse, at Pro Lacrosse Talk. That's the way to get at us. We would love to hear your picks. You agree, you disagree, hit us all with a follow and chime out to us. So, Hutton, Charlie, always a good time, boys. Love doing these live spaces. Hope you all enjoyed it as well. If you enjoyed it, just tell people about the show and make sure that you're following us on all socials. Free information. Can't ask for much more. Check out Hutton's articles and his picks on the Action Network app. You can also find some of his write-ups on Action Network as well. You can get all of Charlie's plays and deep depth analysis on Pickswise. Just follow him on Twitter and also head on over to Pickswise. Check out that lacrosse tab. That's going to do it for us. For my guy, Charlie White, for Hutton Jackson, I'm Dan Alexander, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully with a little more money in our pockets. Bet responsibly, and we'll talk to you next week on Bet on Lacrosse.